With that said, I actually want to walk through with you right now an analysis of how to fill this document out, the different steps, based on an example. And hopefully we can do this as a team. So if you'll divert your attention to the board up here. I'm going to encourage you to read through pages 1, 2, 3, and the top of page 4. That's all about the theory behind the corrections. Why do I have you do this? The action items on the corrections start on the bottom of page 4 with step 1. And we're actually going to do this. I'm going to do this for one of my classmates here. I'm going to do the first few steps of this, starting with step 1, so you can follow through. And you can do this on your page as well. Step 1, could you help me with that? Yeah, you need your exam. If you need your exam, you can come up and grab it. You might have Danya. Maybe Danya, if you real loud, the first step of this thing.
Look over your graded work.
Yeah, keep going.
Do not erase anything from your first attempt on the original quiz or exam.
Keep going. Just. Yeah.
Do not write anything on the original quiz or exam. Identify all problems for which you earned full credit. Identify all problems for which you did not earn full credit.
So this is not an exercise in trying to change history. So we're not erasing our stuff and being like, oh, teacher, look, I got this one full credit and you missed it, right? I've had that happen to me multiple times. It's not a fun exercise. So what I say is this document is now set in stone. Don't change it. Don't add anything. Don't delete anything. Just use it to reflect. We're actually going to follow all the steps about identifying full credit and not full credit by filling out performance review. So if you turn to page, it's definitely not on page 2. Page 8 of this document. That's a typo. All right, so here's an example of a student in this class. On the first problem of the exam, how many points did they earn? 4. There were 6 points possible. How many points did they miss? 2. Is that full credit or not full credit? Not full credit. The only way it's full credit is if the points earned is equal to the points possible, right? Anything else is what you might call partial credit. And we're just going to keep going here. How about the second problem? Earned 0, missed all of them. Earned 0, missed all of them. Okay, it looks like they rocked this one, right? Full credit, no need to talk about how many missed. Earned 0, missed all of them. Same thing, looks like they did pretty well here. Full credit on that one. Pretty good on that. All right. Last one, they got 5, they missed 1. Extra credit, looks like they didn't fill anything out for that. So total points missed, let's take a look. So this would be 18, 19, 21. If they missed 21, could you guess what that means their score was? 29. Looks like that's about what it was. And then I can't answer this for this person because I don't know. Prior to taking this exam, what was the perfect score, percent score that you wanted to achieve on this exam? In other words, what was your goal prior to taking the exam? What was the percent score that you actually achieved? Did you achieve your particular goal? So please fill that out. And the whole idea here is just to keep yourself honest. You know, if you set a goal and you achieved it, that's good information. If you set a goal and you didn't achieve it, that's also very useful information. So that's literally steps 1 and 2. You're just taking a stab at what happened on the exam. What did you do well? What are the things that you missed? Did you set a goal for yourself? If so, what was the goal that you set? When you look at your performance, did you achieve that goal or did you not achieve it? All right, let's take a look at the next step. So that's step 1 and 2. What about step 3? What's step 3 there? And maybe I'll have Connor. What's step 3 on this one?
Write exam corrections. On a separate, blank, clean paper, not on the quizzes or exam itself. Redo all problems that you did not receive full credit for. Your solutions should be neat, organized, and easy to read.
All right, so this is important, blank, separate blank clean sheet of paper. I've had a student submit corrections on a paper that was covered with blood, and then this person got mad at me for not grading them. This is a real story. This happened. I've had students submit corrections when I was an earlier student, an earlier teacher, and I wasn't as good as communicating, on napkins. They weren't used, but they were like a napkin, right? And they got mad for not grading it. I prefer that you submit them on blank white paper. If you need blank white paper, I have them up here. The ones that you submit with little ruffles on it, it kind of ruffles my feather a little bit because I grade those at home. It falls on my carpet. My 2-year-old son or 1-year-old son picks it up and puts it in their mouth. My wife tells me to go get the vacuum, and it's like a 20-minute process, right? So my preference is that you literally do use blank, clean, white paper. If you need it, I literally have, I think, 1,500 pieces that I put at the beginning of the quarter. Yeah, Chris? Only if you glue the knobs in place and then you make sure that if I shake it, it doesn't go away, right? All right, I want to show you some examples of what I'm looking for here. This work should be much more in detail than the work that you can do on a live test. Because this is based on time, right? You have a lot more time on this. We're going to set a due date in just a little bit. I like to give at least 2 weekends. My preference would be to give 3 weekends if we can. So I want you to have this coming weekend, the weekend after that, and if possible, the weekend after that. So that's 3 full weekends. I also like to have them do at least a weekend before the next test so that the reflections that you do, you can actually put into your study routines for the next exam. I think that's very useful for my students, so we're going to take a look at that in a second. I want to show you some examples of work that I've gotten from my students that I think is actually quite good, and then I'm going to show you some examples of work that I thought could be a lot better. In the exam corrections process, you're actually going to do 2 things. Number 1, you're going to make sure that you understand and can communicate the full solution in complete detail to yourself first and foremost, but also to an educated onlooker. Here are some examples in another class. This was an example of a question, I think, about, let's see, must be the derivation of the directional derivative. So I think I was having this person derive, yeah, so no, I think this one was actually a derivation of the limit definition of a derivative vector for parameterized curves. This was a 1-page, 1-question problem on the test. What I really like about this is that this person is hitting multiple aspects of her concept definition. She's doing diagrams. She's making the connection between the diagrams that she writes and the symbols in words and in mathematics. And then she's actually using her own language. So this is not language that we have in the book. This is not a straight copy. However, a line is more than just a direction. Leaving our answer as a direction would be like being asked for a line in slope-intercept form and just giving the line slope. Thus, our secant line is given by, and then she's really doing call-outs. See how clear it is that this person for herself is customizing this understanding and then is fully describing everything that she's doing? When you look at this work, how hard is it to convince yourself that this person knows what she's doing on this? Yeah, you could see it in about a second, right? She keeps going, she gets this, and then the really cool thing about this is, here's another one. This is from, I think this is a 1D exam. Now she's looking at the use of the Pythagorean theorem to talk about line integrals. There's a very, very special differential form in this case of a line integrals. Here's another example. Look at this one. Spherical coordinates. She's deriving the whole, this was a spherical coordinate problem. All she had to do was actually put it in spherical coordinates, and yet she derived the entire formula for herself, and she made connections between the alphas, the rhos, the projections, all of the stuff necessary to understand where spherical coordinates come from, so she could get down to the integral that she needed. Okay, let me show you an example, another example. This was an example of derivations of another different style. This is a very different style than the last one, but it's still legit. They're doing the derivation of a projection, orthogonal projection. Over here, this person is telling me step by step what they're doing. P is a projection vector in the direction of x, therefore P is equal to alpha times x. I still think that more can be done on this one. This one I was a little bit not satisfied with, because I think this person can describe more about what they're doing, right? It's not clear to me that this person knows exactly why P is equal to alpha times x. In particular, the word direction is quite special, right? But I don't see that that person has really marinated on the concept of a direction in 1C based on this solution. But it's pretty darn good in the sense that this person is making direct connections between the thing that they're looking to do and the corresponding mathematical analysis that they're providing here. And then they get down to a point where they've derived the projection formula. Right. Let me show you an example of one that I was not very impressed with and that I thought could be a lot better. The reason I'm not impressed with this is this person could have literally just copied this work down from my lecture notes, and I cannot tell if they actually understand this. If you took away all my words and you just looked at these steps, how do I know that this person knows what they're doing? It kind of looks like they know what they're doing, right? But how do I know that? How can I tell that this person has really taken intellectual responsibility for those ideas and they're not just copying down symbols on the page? Yeah, I can't tell. I cannot tell whether or not that's the case. And the moment that there's doubt in my mind, do you know what happens? Can I verify that this person knows what they're talking about as a grader? No, because they literally could have just taken my notes, copied symbol by symbol down, not reflected on any of that, and said, I've got the correct solution, right? The point of this is not a copying exercise. This is an exercise in building, hopefully, a very, very strong concept image associated with this particular solution on the exam. And you're going to get my attention to those. So this was an example where I thought this person could have done a lot better. And it kind of goes throughout, right? Do you notice another thing about this person's work? Just if you look at it compared to the other two pieces of work that I just showed you. I mean, we can just keep, this is a pretty good one too. How hard is it to read this work? What do you notice about the amount of symbols and the amount of actual sentences? Who is this person really teaching? Do you think they're teaching me, Jeff Anderson?
No.
Who are they teaching? Yeah. What's nice about it, though, is I'm going to cite a second grade, and some of my colleagues say, hey, how come they can get a second grade? But here's the thing that I say right back when I think about this. Do you know what happens when I don't actually regrade this, or in another class, when you get your test back and the teacher doesn't regrade it? What do you often do with that test? Put it away. Which means all the problems that you've missed, all of that knowledge is untouched. Now, my feeling is if I know that you've touched it again and I know you've reflected on it very, very deeply, doesn't that merit a second chance? And more importantly, this is where steps 4, 5, and 6 come in. So step 3, what was step 3 again? And I think, what was it? Who was it? Connor who was saying that? Or Danya? What was step 3? Write the exam corrections. What's step 4? And I might ask April to be real loud. What's step 4?
Step 4 is identify your mistakes.
Yeah, and what does that mean in the context of this test?
Basically, whatever mistake you made. Oh, you read it or just tell you.
Yeah, maybe you can just tell me.
Okay. Know what mistake you made and correct it.
For every single problem.
Yeah.
You know how some people collect stamps, and some people collect coins, and some people collect movies? I collect math mistakes. I'm 100% serious. I'm always amazed when I get an exotic mistake that I've never seen before. At this point, I did the calculation at one point. I think I've graded over 200,000 or 300,000 exam problems in my life. We could do this calculation if you wanted, right? I've done this many times. I'm always amazed when I get a new mistake. I was watching Avengers Endgame upside down on my head before I took the exam. I'm like, oh, I've never seen that mistake before, right? That's a good one. I put together a document that kind of overviews every type of the general categories of math mistakes that I've seen in my past. And I break them down into about 6 categories. I think 7 categories if you look at this one, because there's 2 6, right? And then I have a bunch of subcategories associated with that. Because some of you might not be used to analyzing your mistakes. You might not actually be able to look at the problem that you did and then say, this is the mistake that I made. And so I want to provide you some inspiration on that. So literally every single problem that you miss, I want you to do some reflection on. What specific mistake did you make? And this is an example of that. So this woman goes through the entire derivation here. My mistake was not being detailed enough. In a derivation, it is important to show all the steps clearly and not leave any assumptions. I thought that the value of delta x sub k and delta y sub a was obvious from both my diagram and the diagram provided, but I could have been more thorough. I will be sure to proofread my derivations and make sure that it is as detailed as possible. You will notice this about me. When you submit exam corrections, the job is not to leave interpretations to Jeff. Many of you answered your exams not for me. You answered them for your past teachers. Do you know what a lot of my teachers cares about when they saw my exams? The correct answers. Do you know what I care about? Deep understanding. Those are different things. And I expect when you're writing your solutions, I don't expect you to be like, oh, you know this math, Jeff. Just fill in the details. No, 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 no. The job of a test is not to show me the answers. The job of the test is that you can get the answers from deep understandings, and I want to see evidence of that. And I was a little bit harsh on this exam because I felt like the content was very limited. And so I actually asked, one of the things you'll notice, some of you, anybody notice that you're like, whoa, he took points away from that? Yeah, it's because our first dance together. And because I'm going to grade it again, I mean, I want to get you started right away with my style. I want you to know my style, I want you to know my expectations, and I want you to start to taste what this type of instruction is like. Instruction that focuses very heavily on deep understanding and demonstration of that understanding in both thought and action. Right? So for every exam, every problem that you missed, I want a full sentence or 3. Some people, I don't think you need to write 4 paragraphs on this. Here's another one, step 4. So this person did it at the end. For this problem, I think it belongs to type 1, misread direction errors, and type 5, test procedures errors. When I was doing it, I didn't note that it says use implicit differentiation, so I recognized it as an ellipse, and I made a graph, and I used that to get the tangent line. I didn't write enough for my explanation, which is similar to my problem 2. Right? So this person, what they did is after they got all the correct solutions, they went and they wrote all the mistakes at the end. I generally like it, once you get your exam solution, I generally like you to write step 4 on the same piece of paper so that you can do a bijection, and more importantly, I can do a bijection so I can see immediately. But this is where creativity comes in. You can put it anywhere you like as long as you finish it. So for every problem, you're going to do what? Step 3 is in as much detail as you can give me to demonstrate that you've mastered that problem. Step 4 is, for every single problem, I want you to analyze what type of mistakes that you made. If you needed more information about where to find types of mistakes that are commonly made, where would you find that? In my collection. Oh, I guess I have to call this out. Can someone read that little warning in all those boxes?
If you do not complete step 4, you won't earn credit. This step is crucial to learning from you and your mistakes.
Yeah, so I need to update that. Your mistakes. Yeah. What a beautiful thing. God, I should really reread this. That's a beautiful thing to reflect on. I was up late last night and I got through the first few pages, but I didn't reread the entire document. I should really make a priority to do that. Or maybe stop making videos, because that's taking me a lot of time. Right? All right. And that's the same thing as step 5 and step 6. My claim is when you're reflecting on your mistakes, that's where the learning begins, because each mistake is an invitation to change thoughts, habits, beliefs, and behaviors. Right? And unless you're conscious of the mistakes that you're making, it's very hard to make changes to the patterns that led to those mistakes in the beginning. So step 5 is all about identifying patterns. Anybody notice that when you take an exam and you make more than one mistake, sometimes there's through lines between all the mistakes that you make? In step 5, at the end of your corrections, I'm going to ask you to do a full analysis, and I'll show you the type of analysis that, let me see if I can find some of these. Yeah, there we go. So this is an example of another student. The most obvious pattern for me was my time management is bad when I take exams, since I'm always rushing close to the end of the time we are given. I spend too much time on the first question, even if I don't know how to solve it well. I believe that if I can manage my time better, I would be less stressed about time as I progress through the exam. So the idea is after you've got the corrections, after you've analyzed each mistake, you're going to take a look at all the patterns, and then I actually like a paragraph or 2 on this one. The moment you've identified patterns in your mistakes, do you know what the invitation is, the implicit invitation about this entire experience?
Talk about how to solve it.
Yeah. Like really think about those patterns and think about what changes you need to make in your preparation strategies and your training strategies so that that pattern doesn't affect you in the same way. Analyze that. Right? And I want to actually read that, because those are the changes that are going to be customized to every single one of you that make the difference between your performance on the first exam and hopefully your performance on the second exam, right? All right, the last thing that I'm going to ask you to do is what? Yeah. So far, the first 5 steps were all what I call intrapersonal. They're within self. This is your first interpersonal. What I call this is a quality control survey. I say this to my students every quarter. My students are my best teachers. You all teach me. Every single quarter I make substantive changes in my classes based on student feedback. I have, on exam 1, I have a set of 5 questions, which I call my quality control questions. Please reflect on this. When I ask you what went well for you in this exam and what type of mistakes did you make, you can give a synopsis of the work that you did previously. I don't collect all of your, I read through them, but I don't actually take your analysis on steps 3, 4, and 5 from you. I give those back to you so you can use it for your future. But I want a synopsis here because I actually collect these, I keep them in my office, and then I read through every single one of them, and at the end of the quarter when I do my post-quarter review to think about changes for the next quarter, I use this information that you provide on these questions to make changes in my classes. And so I'm not asking you to restate verbatim, but I want kind of an overview that I can keep for myself, and I can really think about this as I try to become a better instructor, right? This is the way that I do my exam corrections at the end of the quarter, by reading through your work and thinking critically about what you say. Okay. Pretty amazing, right?